Welcome to the Kentucky Cannabis Licensing Summary for the upcoming lottery. On April 18th, 2024, the Kentucky Medical Cannabis Program filed 2 administrative regulations that guide how medical cannabis entrepreneurs can apply to become licensed in the Bluegrass state. A map was also released by the state officials highlighting the 11 medical cannabis regions for licensing dispensaries. These regions are dominated in population by the first 2, Bluegrass and Kentuckiana, with populations combined to be 1.8 million people, and the remaining 60% of the population is spread over the other 9 regions. House Bill 829, which was signed into law by Governor Andy Beshear, moved up the timeline for cannabis business licensing from January 1st, 2025 to July of 2024 and gave the public until June 30th to comment on it. There won't be much time for that though, and everything is mostly known about the licensing application process for Kentucky, with the application portal scheduled to go live on July 1st, 2024. Granted, the application process and licensing is subject to change quite rapidly, so stay up to date with the state's information published at kymedcan.ky.gov. That is, the letters KY, medcan.ky.gov. Most demand for licenses centers around the dispensaries, with grows and processings in 2nd and 3rd place. There are many licensing restrictions that you must comply with to get into the lottery, because we expect a lot of interest to be one of the first operators in Kentucky. MSOs, we think, are favored to do well, as the rollout requires real estate and capital for the application to be eligible for entry into the lottery. What are the license types? The following 5 license types for cannabis are going to be coming to businesses available in Kentucky. You have the cultivator license, the processor license, the dispensary license, the producer license, and the safety compliance license. Each of these licenses will allow business to engage in certain market segments that will comprise the entire medical cannabis supply chain in Kentucky in the coming years. Let's now discuss the details of the licenses one by one. First, Kentucky Cultivator license. Cultivators are tiered in Kentucky, and the largest tier is off the market in this first round. Tier 1 license is for a canopy to not exceed 2,500 square feet. It comes with a $3,000 application fee and a $12,000 licensing fee. The same amount must be paid each year for renewal. Only 10 of these licenses will be awarded, and the required capital to show is only $50,000. We think that this license type is where most of the startups and locals will play. In Tier 2, the maximum cultivation area allowed is 10,000 square feet. The application fee for a Tier 2 license is $10,000, and the licensing and renewal fees are $25,000 each. $200,000 of capital is required to reach this lottery. Tier 3 allows cultivators to grow cannabis in a maximum square footage of 25,000. To apply for this license, you will need to pay $20,000 of an application fee and $50,000 for each licensing and renewal fee. MSO competition will be fierce for this, because you must demonstrate $500,000 of capital to gain entry and apply for this lottery. The last tier is the Cultivator license, Tier 4, which comes with an application fee of $30,000 and a maximum square footage of 50,000 feet of canopy size. The licensing and renewal fees are going to be $100,000 each. That's coming once the program is past this round, however. $1 million worth of capital will be required to be shown to gain entry to this lottery, if and when it happens. Let's move on to the processor license now. The processor license permits a company to obtain unprocessed cannabis. That's plant material from growers or other producers, and then process that material. Under this license type, you will be able to create stuff like vapes, pre-rolls, and many other aspects of the cannabis plant. The processors will have the permission to extract, manufacture, alter, and mix cannabis. So I bet that pre-rolls and vapes will be their biggest products. In addition to this, they can package, move, deliver, transport, supply, and sell cannabis and supplies related to cannabis to other approved cannabis businesses in Kentucky. It's going to be a hot license and overlooked. I'd apply for it. The application fee for a processor license in Kentucky is $5,000, and the fee to be paid for the license if you get it is $25,000. An annual renewal fee is $15,000, and you must demonstrate capital of $150,000 to gain access to this license lottery. Next, the Kentucky Dispensary License. Anyone who wishes to operate a Kentucky medical marijuana dispensary must get a dispensary license issued first by winning a lottery with a complete application. A dispensary license allows the license holders to purchase cannabis and cannabis products from other licensed facilities in the state. They can also sell these products to medical card holders. The only products that the dispensaries are not allowed are cannabis flower with THC concentrations greater than 35%, basically impossible, products with more than 10 milligrams per serving if they are intended for oral consumption, or cannabis products with more than 70% THC concentration. Kind of bad news for vapes there. Of course, they can also not sell products containing vitamin E acetate and accessories used for smoking, such as lighters and rolling papers. The other requirements are that the dispensaries must only be open between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., and only individuals aged 18 and older can enter the dispensary. The application fee for the dispensary is $5,000, whereas the licensing fee and the renewal fee are $30,000 and $15,000. You must prove 150 large, it's 150 biggins, or just $150,000 in committed capital. Kentucky Producer License. Next up is something we can kind of scoot by because the Kentucky Producer License will not be available in Kentucky's first medical cannabis application round. The producer license permits the license holder to have a cultivation business as well as a processor business under one license. The location of both of these operations does not necessarily have to be the same. If a producer wants to operate both cultivation and processor operations at the same location, then they are required to provide operational plans before opening the business. These plans must have written documentation to maintain separation between the cultivation and processing operations, a blueprint showing the areas where you'll be extracting within the premises, and also where the cultivation and processing will be done. The fees for a producer license include a $5,000 application fee, a $25,000 licensing fee, and a $15,000 renewal fee. But you're going to have to wait for this lottery to pass before you get a chance at that one. Not so much, though, for the Safety Compliance Facility License. This is the last of the 5 cannabis license types in Kentucky. If you have a license to operate a safety compliance facility, you can establish a business that tests medical cannabis products obtained from other licensed Kentucky medical cannabis companies. A safety compliance facility ensures that cannabis products are tested to prove that they are safe and can be sold to medical patients and dispensaries. All batches and products produced by a licensed medical cannabis business must be tested by a safety compliance facility at every step of the process. This license has an application fee of $3,000, well, $12,000 each for licensing and renewal fees. You must have $150,000 of capital, but it is not a lottery. There are not any limits besides the market for this license type. You see, Kentucky is a limited market. So many licenses will be issued. That's it. We are going to cover that now. This means licenses themselves will have intrinsic value and people will fight to get them. For example, in the Cultivator license category, a total of 16 licenses will be issued for the first 3 tiers. There will be 10 of the smallest Tier 1 licenses with only 2,500 square feet of canopy space, 4 of the middle Tier 2 licenses with 10,000 square feet of canopy space, and only 2 of the 25,000 square feet canopy space for Tier 3. Tier 4 licenses will not be issued in this first round of applications. Moving right along, only 10 processor licenses will be issued by the state of Kentucky. The number of dispensaries to be issued is 48. Among these 48 licenses, 4 will be in each rural region, while the Bluegrass and Kentuckiana regions will have 6 licenses each. The number of safety compliance facility licenses does not have any cap on it, and we discussed that earlier. No producer licenses will be issued in the first round either, so a total of 74 licenses will be available for grabs in 2024. That's it. and maybe it for years to come. As for the method of awarding the licenses, the state of Kentucky will issue them pursuant to a lottery system in collaboration with the Kentucky Lottery. We covered some of the application requirements when we were talking about the different licenses. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what exactly is required to apply for the Kentucky cannabis license. Adequate capital. Starting with funding. Each business that applies for a license is required to present a funding source of at least $150,000 for a dispensary, processors, or safety facility compliance, $50,000 for the Tier 1 cultivators, $200,000 for the Tier 2 cultivators, and $500,000 for the Tier 3 cultivators license. These amounts are way less than what it will actually cost to get operational and only satisfy the requirements of capital for the purposes of the application. Moreover, if a company is applying for a cannabis license in more than one region, which is allowed, it will need to provide different funding sources for each region, and of course, different real estate, which brings us to site control, buffer plans, and zoning. Let's talk all about the real estate that you're going to need to be able to apply for a Kentucky medical cannabis license. When applying for the license, applicants are required to prove evidence of site control for each site through a lease, contingent agreement, or purchase agreement, maybe also a deed. Site plans are required for each site. Specifically, you upload a technical drawing or digital rendering of the site location where the cannabis business activities will occur. For sensitive use buffers, the operation should be 1,000 feet from the closest property line, from K-12 schools, preschools, or daycares. In light of the site requirements, the state has released this sweet zoning tool that you can also find at the website, which we have linked in the description below. That's at kycanmed.ky.gov. It's a website to help you find compliant locations. Another requirement includes the ownership disclosures by applicants. Every owner is required to submit their personal details, such as full name, date of birth, resume, a current working phone number and email address, residential address. The state of Kentucky is also requesting proof of business expertise in Kentucky or within the legal cannabis sector. But it is still unclear how they will obtain and review this information, as the state seems to allow any applicant that has a complete application that is compliant with all the rules into the lottery. That complete application will include financial information. Applicants are required to disclose financial contributor or licensed medical professional who has a partnership agreement with the applicant or an ownership stake in the business. As is the case of other licenses, the state will require each company's incorporation documents, bylaws, organizational structure, and other relevant foundational business documents. And if you have a managed services agreement or an MSA, you will have to upload that as well. From well-defined licensing categories to comprehensive application processes, the state of Kentucky looks committed to its mission to provide medical cannabis to patients. If you found this information useful, give us a like, give us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Tune in to the live podcast on Sunday. I'm going to put a whole bunch of helpful links that you need to apply successfully to a cannabis license in the state of Kentucky right down there. See you on Sunday.